Hello CraftDee family, and welcome to another tutorial by She's So CraftDee. For today's DIY project, we'll be creating some fun and easy farmhouse decor using items from the Dollar Tree and items less than $1. Now these decor creations can be used in so many ways and in just about any space of your home. Now I've placed some of my favorite decorative accessories on these pieces, but you can certainly customize these in any way you prefer with your own items that you have on hand. Now, as always, all of the projects I create have complete supply lists in the description box, so you can easily use it for reference as you gather your supplies. Now, before we start, I have to say, hey to all of my subscribers, and if you are a new visitor to my channel, I hope you consider subscribing as well, and stick around to enjoy these crafts and the different tips that I will share with you all to make these super easy to make. So now, let's just jump right into these projects. Now this project is an arched lantern tray. We're going to need one of these square box art pieces from the Dollar Tree. We'll need one pack of these Hot Wheels tracks from the Dollar Tree. We'll need a scrap piece of white poster board and a scrap of foam board. And we'll need one of these ping pong balls from the Dollar Tree. Now we're going to start with gathering up all of our supplies and first taking all the retail coverings off the artwork and the racetracks. We're also going to remove that insert in the box wall art for the hanger because we will not be using that for this project. Now the first thing we're going to do to our racetracks is to sand them down. We want to remove that shiny surface because we will be painting these, and we just want to make sure they're dulled out on both sides, and here are both of them completely sanded down. And then after you sand them, you definitely want to clean them off. So I'm just taking some rubbing alcohol and a paper towel and cleaning off all of the dust. So now that that's done, you can choose to paint these with acrylic or chalk paint if you want to, but I'm going to paint with my Zinser 123 primer after I assemble my lantern. So in order to make the lantern arch, I'm just going to bend the racetrack and it'll form this nice arch that fits right in the corner. Now I wanted my ridges to be on the outside, but you could do it the other way where the ridges are on the inside, but I think them on the outside just gives it a little bit more character. Now to secure the arch in place, we are going to use some Sure Bonder wood stick hot glue, and I'm first going to apply that in the corner. Now where the racetrack is making contact with that corner, I'm adding a line of that hot glue, nestling the edge of that racetrack in place, and then adding a little bit more in to reinforce that connection. Now once the inside is done, we're going to add some on the outside as well. We're just going to add a bead on the outside of the track along the edges of the box, and then we're also going to add some along the bottom of that racetrack as well, as shown here, and this will make sure that it is nice and secure. And now we're going to repeat this on the other side, and once it dries, it's really secure. I can actually hold the box with the racetrack. It's not going anywhere. So for the other one, we're just going to bend that over the other racetrack just the same way. Make sure they're overlapping in the center, and then we can hot glue those corners in place just like we did before. Now once everything is hot glued in place and nice and secure, we are good to go. Now for the center part, to keep it from shifting and wiggling, we're just going to add the tiniest bit of hot glue underneath that racetrack. Just push one of the racetracks down and ooze your nozzle of hot glue in there. Just give it a little squeeze just to make sure that middle piece does not shift. And we're going to do this on both sides. And everything is now nice and secure in the center. So we want to follow up and go ahead and remove all of those hot glue webs, and I like to use this little Dollar Tree broom. This is a very important. These will show up in your final paint if you don't remove them. So now we're going to work on adding a finial to the piece. Now in order to make one, I'm going to be using some ping pong balls and some foam board and poster board. So I'm just going to take my compass and I am going to draw a circle, and my circle ended up being about 1 3/4 of an inch. That was a good size that I set my compass to. So it ended up maybe being just a little over 3 inches wide. So I'm going to draw 3 circles on my foam board. Now once those are drawn, go ahead and grab your cutting mat and your X-Acto knife, and you're going to cut out each one of those circles. So once you have your 3 circles, when these are all stacked up, this will make the base of your finial for your lantern tray. So we're going to hot glue all of these together. Just add a generous amount of that hot glue on there and press 2 of the circles together. And then we're just going to add that 3rd circle on the bottom, again adding more hot glue and making sure they're nice and secure. Now at this point the edges will probably be rough, so take your sandpaper and just roll the side of that circle along until you get it nice and smooth. So now we're going to trace that circle out of your poster board as well, and we're going to cut that circle out. Now this circle will be added to the top of the finial. It adds a glossy surface to the top so paint would adhere very well. You're just going to trim it down to fit, add some hot glue to your foam board, and place your circle on with the shiny side up, so it'll be the top of the base of your finial. So now what we're going to do is, we have rough edges around the edge, so I'm measuring the width of the circle on a piece of poster board, and I'm cutting a strip out the same width as my circle, thickness as my circle, and I'm going to start to apply this around it, just covering up the rough edges of that poster board. Now we're just going to apply this all the way around with some hot glue, just making sure the top and bottom edges are nice and even, going all the way around, and just adding hot glue in little sections as you go, just making sure it's even. Again, you want the glossy side of the poster board out, and then secure that very end with a little dot of hot glue, finishing up that wrap around. So now you have your base of your finial all finished. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and take your tray. We're going to put the finial, we're going to mount it right on top with the rough side down and the glossy side up. Just add a few strips of hot glue to the very center and press that finial right in the middle. You do want to make sure that this is nice and even, so you can just tilt it over to the side to make sure it's sitting nice in the middle. So now to finish off that finial, we are going to use one of these ping pong balls right in the center. So I'm going to add some hot glue to the base of the finial, and then I'm going to kind of indent the bottom of that ping pong ball just so it'll sit kind of flat, and then I'm going to add some hot glue to it, and it did pop back out, but I pushed it back in with the edge of my X-Acto knife, and then I'm going to push it right in the center of the base. Now you just want to press it down, rotate your tray around just to make sure it's sitting even all the way around, and hold it in place until the glue dries. So here you have it. Everything is all nice and glued together and ready to go. So I'm going to take it out and give it 2 coats of the Zinsser 123 on the inside and outside of the frame. So now that it's dry, here is what it looks like, and you notice some of the spray paint doesn't get into the smallest cracks and crevices, especially along the ridges of the track, but we plan to follow up with a final coat, and I'm going to be using my white chalk paint for this. So I'm going to first use my paintbrush to get inside that little ridge, get some chalk paint inside there. It should cover it up nice and good, and you would want to cover up both of the edges of the track, and then once you cover both edges, you want to paint the inside and outside of that track on both sides. Now you want to repeat this all the way around until all the arches are covered, and then add a coat of that chalk paint to your finial as well. Now this will seal in all of your primer and make it a nice and neat finish. Now just repeat this for the bottom of the tray and the outside edge as well. And then let that just sit to completely dry. And here we have it. Our tray is nice and dry, so we're going to go ahead and cover the bottom. You guys know I love a finished project and love to cover the backs and bottoms of them. So I'm just going to run some hot glue along the bottom edge of our little tray, and I'm going to make sure it has an X in the middle. Lay it right on top of that thick craft paper that I have, and then I'm going to take it and I'm going to trim it off. Now I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife to do this. Just make sure you have a cutting mat underneath so you don't scratch your work surface. Trim off all of that excess. And now your bottom of your project is nice and neat. Now I did want to add a little bit of distressing to my project, so I'm taking some of this chocolate brown acrylic paint and a fine tipped paintbrush, and I'm just going to drag it along the edge of the paintbrush on the edge of those arches first. And it doesn't matter how you do this. You could do it light, you could do it heavy. I'm just doing it random. That's the wonderful thing about distressing. It is completely random, and you can do it to your heart's content. So here are all of my arches. I have a little bit of distressing on all of them. And now I'm going to add a little bit to my finial as well, just going around those edges on the base and also along the edge of that ping pong ball as well. Now you also want to add some to the edge of your tray at the top edge and along the bottom edge. And then you can just flip it up, get that bottom edge as well, and make sure you tap those corners as well with a little bit of distressing. You just kind of want to emulate what it looks like if it had a natural wear and tear on those corners. Now once everything is covered, you do want to let this completely dry. And here you have it. Here is your tray all nice and dry, and all you have to do now is to decorate it for your space. And here is my arch lantern on display, and I absolutely love how it turned out. Now I am so glad that I found another awesome way to use those racetracks, and they formed the perfect arch for this lantern tray. Now I think it's so awesome what you can create from simple dollar store supplies, and you can save lots of money at the same time. Now you all have to let me know what you think of this project in the comments below. Now this project is a set of trellis planter boxes. Now we're going to need 2 wood crates from the Dollar Tree. And we're going to need some Quart craft sticks from Lowe's that I got for 98 cents. Now we're going to start off by working on the wood crates and those craft sticks, and we're going to remove all of their packaging and labels from the bottom of the crates. Now I'm going to be staining these with my Waverly Antique Wax, and you can use a regular stain as well. I just had the wax readily available, and I'm just going to go ahead and do this because it's quick to dry. So I'm just going to add that wax starting on the outside of the box. Now if you can't get into those crevices with your cloth, use a fine tipped stiff bristle brush to get in the crevices, and then just go ahead and stain the remainder of the outside of your box. And here is what the outside will look like. Now we're just going to repeat this for the inside, and now our crate is fully stained, and repeat this for your other crate. So now that both crates are done, we're going to move on to those craft sticks. Now I just grabbed a bunch of them, and I'm going to stain both sides of these craft sticks, and I want to make sure I get those edges as well. And now all of my craft sticks are done, and we can use them for the project, and I have some extras left over for others. So I'm going to be using my grid mat to assist in putting these together, and I'm just using the lines to make sure everything is even. So we're going to select the best side of the crate that you want to be the outside, and then take 2 of those craft sticks you want for the 2 back supports, and I'm going to add 1 in each back corner of the crate. Now I'm going to add 2 lines of my Sharonda wood stick hot glue into the corner, and I'm going to stick that craft stick in place, making sure it's aligned with the side edge to make sure it's nice and straight. Now you're going to repeat this on the other side, adding a second one. So now we're going to be crossing these 2 craft sticks, kind of creating a trellis. So I'm going to start off by trimming one end of one of the craft sticks nice and straight, and then I'm going to go in with my pencil and mark the other end where I need to cut it to make sure it's even. Now once you do make that mark, go ahead and cut that off. Check your measurement to make sure it's okay, and then you can just add some of that wood stick hot glue on each end and press it into place about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom edge. And now we're going to add 3 more for a total of sticks going across the trellis, and here is what they look like when they're all cut and fit on the box. Now I am going to go ahead and cover the holes. I just took an extra craft stick. I cut some pieces down to cover the hole, add some of that wood stick hot glue, and apply it on the inside of the crate. I just think that this gives it a little bit of an amped up look when it covers the holes, and it does look more professional. So now I'm just taking that cloth with that leftover antique wax on, and I'm covering the ends that I cut on my craft sticks, and now one of our boxes is done, and we can repeat this for a second box. So now that both of our boxes are done, all you really have to do now is to add some hanging strings if you want to hang them. So I'm just taking some jute twine with knots tied on each end, and I'm adding some of that wood stick hot glue across that top piece that's going across the top, adding that knot into that hot glue initially, pressing it firmly into place. Now you're going to repeat this for that second crate, and once they dry, add an additional layer of that hot glue right on top, and this will make sure that it will hold anything you put on there, and this is perfect for lightweight crafts like this. And now both of our trellis crates are done, and we can add them on display. So now here are my trellis planters hung up on the wall in my space, and they look super cute. Now I've added some clover flowers to these, and I love how these look along with the antique wax. Now keep in mind, you can also display these on a tabletop or a shelf as well. Now if you have plants with longer vines, that would look awesome attached to the trellis on the back. Now there's so many options, but you all have to let me know, how would you decorate these in your space? Now this project is a fluted bowl stand set. We're going to need 3 glass candle holders from the Dollar Tree and 1 2-pack of these plastic bowls from the Dollar Tree. Now we're going to gather up all of the supplies and remove all of the tags and labeling from all of our pieces, and we do want to make sure that each of them are really nice and clean so they can be painted. Now we will be adhering 2 of the candle holders on top of each other like this, and for a permanent hold I strongly recommend using E6000, but since I plan on reusing these, I will be using hot glue for this, and this will hold it temporarily for any of my displays. So add some of that hot glue along that top edge and press the 2 candle holders firmly together until they dry, and just wipe away any that oozes out of that seam. Now we'll only be doing this for 1 candle holder because the other one will be a single level. So now we're going to take our double candle holder and we're going to add one of our bowls right on top of there. So again, we're going to take our hot glue and we're going to run it along that bottom edge of, or actually the top edge of the candle holder, and press that bowl right on top, just pressing it there until it's nice and secure. And now we're going to repeat the same thing for our single bowl. Now here are our 2 stands all done. I think they look fantastic just like this, but I plan on painting them for a farmhouse look, so I am going to prime them with my Inventor 123 primer. You could also paint with chalk paint or acrylic paint as well if you prefer. So here are my 2 candle bowl stands, all nice and primed and ready to go, and I am going to go in with some antique wax to give it more of an aged look. Now I didn't want to go in with a thick layer, I just wanted a light layer to give it a nice aged antique look, and make sure you have some paper towels on hand. So I'm just going to go in randomly with that antique wax, just adding it and dabbing it on the base first, just making sure to apply a nice good layer, and then I'm going to immediately go in with a paper towel and just start wiping it away, and that antique wax will kind of blend into the creases and highlight some of those areas. Now I'm doing small areas at a time and then going in with my paper towel as I go. Now the final area I'm doing is the actual outside of the bowl, and then I'm going to go in there, highlight that, and wipe it away too. Now I didn't paint the inside of my bowls because I was going to actually put greenery in there, but you can paint the inside and finish those as well. I just chose not to for my project. So once you repeat this for both of your stands, here is what they look like. This was so simple, so easy, yet turned out so elegant. And now you can decorate. Now here are my 2 candle bowl stands on display, and I am absolutely loving this look. Now I simply added some greenery to the bowls and it worked perfectly for this project. Now what I really love is that detail that the antique wax leaves on these pieces in all of the cracks and crevices, and it was super easy to do. Now I would love these for a foyer table, but where would you display these in your home? Now this project is a customized home sign. Now you'll need one of these signs from the Dollar Tree. You'll need a toy dollhouse from the Dollar Tree. You'll also need some poster stickers from the Dollar Tree. So we're going to remove our house from the packaging, and we are going to be, first of all, priming the back and the front entirely with Zinsser 123 to have a fresh canvas to work with. Now while that dries, we are going to take our sign and we're going to just remove that string, sit it to the side because we will be using that later. Then go ahead and remove any labels that are on the back. So once the labels are removed, we are going to add one layer of some white chalk paint to the entire back of our sign. One layer would be good enough. This will have a more of a distressed look, so one layer will be fine. Just make sure you get around those edges as well, and make sure your final strokes are in the vertical position. So now that our board is all nice and dry from our chalk paint, we are going to mark it, and we want to have a plank look on this piece. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to measure the halfway point on my board, which my board is 9 inches, so I'm marking it at the 4.5 inch point all the way across, and then drawing a line right across, marking it down the center. Now we're going to take each one of those halves, and we want to divide those in half as well at the 2.25 inch mark on the top and bottom halves that we already designated, and then mark those with a pencil as well. And when you do that, you'll end up with 4 even planks on your board. So now I'm going to go in with a Sharpie, and I'm just going to hand draw over those lines. Now I did this on purpose because I didn't want them to be absolutely perfect. I mean, wood planks aren't perfect, and I really wanted a rustic look. So here is what they look like. Now they do appear very bold, but I love to blend them in to the board. So I am going to take a little bit more of that chalk paint, and I am just going to lightly dry brush some of that chalk paint over those lines, and you'll see how it kind of blends in those lines. It looks more natural, and this is what the final product will look like. Now while that dries, we're going to grab that house, which is now dry from our primer, and we are going to start painting this. Now I'm just going to grab a bunch of paints that I had on hand that I wanted to try out. Now I will be applying these all over the house. You'll see I'll change it up at the end, but I just kind of want to show you how I did mine originally. So I'm going to paint the roof of my house, and I wanted it to be a black color. So I'm going to go in and just paint the entire roof of my house with some black acrylic paint. Now here is the entire roof painted black on the house. Now I did want my house to be a gray, and I believe this is elephant gray acrylic paint, and I'm going to paint the entire base of the house elephant gray. Now I have some 2 windows up top. I wanted to give them like a wood trim around the windows, and I went in with this mustard brown color around the windows. I really love this color. I love it that it looks like a wood accent, and I got a little carried away. I started adding it around more of the trims of the house, along that top arch and the door, and here's what it looked like. Now I'll be changing this up later, but I wanted to show you my process. So I got really ambitious at this point, and I said I want a pop of color for my door, so I added this turquoise blue to the door, and also the windows. The windows were great, but the door was just way too much, and I added the little swirlies up top, highlighting those, but that's okay. We will be changing that later. So now we're going to take our house, and we're going to center it on our board, and I'm just using it here as a guide to place my wording on. Now I wanted my wording to say our home, so I'm peeling off the letters and just putting them on the board. This isn't permanent placement. I'm just kind of getting an idea of how I want them placed on the board. And then at the bottom I'm going to put established and a year. I just put 05 here, and I used the letter O, and I had to make my own 5 because the 5s at Dollar Tree are way too big, and I kind of had to make one with the letters. So now I'm going to take my ruler, and I am going to make sure my words are nice and even. So now I'm going to kind of permanently place them on the board, and then at the bottom do the same thing for the established year. So this is where I took my house and it was just way too much with all the extra trims and the door color. So I'm going to neutralize that. So I'm going over the door and the trim with some white acrylic paint, and I'm also going back over the windows and also that top trim and all of those swirls. Now I am using that mustard brown color. I am still keeping that at the top because I really like that look. Now all I did in the end is I actually painted my door black, highlighted it with a little bit of gray for the accents on the door, and I love this neutral look. I think this looks so much better. So now that this is dry, I am going to add it to my sign, and all I'm going to do is add a bead of hot glue along the bottom and around the edges of my little house, and then center it as best as I can on that board between my wording. Now I wanted a little accent with some bushes on the side of my house, so I had some pieces of boxwood laying around. I'm just cutting off the ends and then I'm going to bundle them together. Now in order to secure them together, I'm using some jute twine that I got from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to wrap it around those stems up maybe about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch, and then securing that in place with hot glue until I have a nice cute bundle. Now I'm going to make one more bundle for the other side of the house for a second bush. Now once you make those, go ahead and secure those in place with a little bit of hot glue and just adhere them to each side of the house. Now once that dries, here is what the board looks like so far. So now I am going to cover up the back of my project just to make it nice and neat. So I'm taking some of that thick craft paper, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bead of hot glue along the back edge of the piece and press it down on that craft paper until it dries. And then I'm going to grab my cutting mat and my X-Acto knife and trim off all of the excess. Now once that's done, go ahead and re-poke your holes where you did take your string out, just so it's wide enough to reinsert the string that we had earlier. We're just going to reinsert that, and it has little plastic tips that go in fairly easy. Just reinsert it through the holes through the back on each side. And now our sign is ready to hang up. And here we have it, a cute little sign that you can hang in your home. Now I think that this was so much fun to make, and it's perfect if the kiddos want to help painting the little house too for your craft. Now I have to say, I love all of these projects today, but you guys have to let me know which one of these DIYs today was your favorite. Just let me know in the comments below. Listen, if you love DIYs on a budget, please give this video a thumbs up and share this video with your friends. Make sure that you're following She's So Crafty EE on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest for the latest news, sneak peeks, and giveaways. If you like videos like these and you don't want to miss the next one, make sure you're subscribed by clicking that subscribe button below, or just click on my She's So Crafty logo on your screen, and make sure you hit that bell to be notified when my next DIY goes live. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.